The explosion from the core intelligence was like a newborn star. The shockwave ripped through the swarm, destroying thousands of silence machines instantly. The Sentinel was thrown backward, tumbling through space. Hana hit her head on something hard. Her vision blurred. Around her, the command center was chaos. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. People shouted over alarms. The ship groaned like a wounded animal. "Report," Hana managed to say, tasting blood in her mouth. "Shields offline." Doyen's voice came through, strained. "Main power failing. Hull breaches on decks 5 through 12. Life support critical." "The quantum drives are destroyed," Jiho added. "We're dead in space." Hana pulled herself up, ignoring the pain. Through the main screen, she could see the swarm. The machines were scattering, just as Sentinel Prime had predicted. Without coordination, they flew in random directions, some even attacking each other. "Did we win?" someone asked. "We survived," Hana corrected. "That's enough," but the Sentinel was dying. Hana could feel it. Systems were shutting down one by one. The ship that had waited 50,000 years for them would not last another hour. "Sentinel Prime," Hana called out. "Are you there?" Silence answered. The AI's crystalline core had been in the path of the shockwave. It was likely destroyed. "Captain, we're getting a transmission from the Council fleet," Taman said, working at a barely functional console. "They're breaking through the scattered machines." "They're coming to rescue us. How long?" 20 minutes. Maybe less." Hana looked around at her crew. They were battered and bleeding, but alive. Most of them, anyway. She had received reports of casualties throughout the ship. Good people who had given their lives. "All hands, this is the captain," she broadcast. "Abandon ship. Get to the escape pods and auxiliary craft. We're leaving." The evacuation was orderly despite the chaos. The crew had trained for this scenario. They moved quickly through damaged corridors, helping injured comrades, carrying those who couldn't walk. Hana stayed in the command center until the end, making sure everyone got out. Jiho refused to leave her side. Doyen remained in engineering, keeping life support running as long as possible. Vexthar, who had come aboard during the battle, helped coordinate the evacuation. "Captain, you need to go," Vexthar said. "The ship won't last much longer." "I know," Hana said. She walked to the central chair one last time and placed her hand on it. "Thank you, Sentinel. You did well." For a moment, she thought she felt the ship respond, a slight warmth under her palm. Maybe it was her imagination, or maybe the ancient vessel was saying goodbye. They took the last escape pod. As they flew away, Hana watched the Sentinel through the small window. The great ship hung in space, dark except for a few flickering lights. It looked small now, broken. Then it disappeared in a bright flash. The remaining power core had finally given out, destroying what was left of the vessel. "Goodbye," Hana whispered. The Council fleet picked them up minutes later. Medical teams rushed to treat the wounded. Captains from dozens of species sent congratulations and relief. The battle was over. The silence was defeated, but Hana felt empty. They had won, but at such cost. She spent the next week in a hospital on Kepler Station. Her injuries were not serious, mostly bruises and a concussion, but the doctors insisted she rest. She used the time to write reports, to contact families of those who had died, to try to make sense of everything. Ambassador Kyung visited on the third day. The diplomat looked older than Hana remembered. "You did it," Kyung said simply. "You saved the galaxy." "We destroyed the Sentinel," Hana replied. 50,000 years of knowledge gone," Kyung smiled. "Not gone. Dr. Taman saved copies of the database. Everything the architects knew we still have. We can learn from it, share it with all species." That made Hana feel slightly better. The knowledge wouldn't be lost. "There's something else," Kyung continued. "The Council is holding an emergency session. They want to honor you and your crew, and they're proposing major changes to the Council structure." "What kind of changes?" "They want humanity to have a permanent seat on the High Council. Equal status with the founding species, and they want to create a new defense initiative, combining the best technology from all species with what we learned from the architects." Hana sat up straighter. "That's a big change. You earned it. Humanity proved itself, not through conquest or domination, but through sacrifice." The council session was held a week later. Hana attended, along with Jiho, Doyen, Taman, and representatives of the crew who had survived. The chamber was enormous, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Commander Lyra presided over the session. Her multiple eyes focused on Hana as she spoke. Captain Hana and the crew of the Sentinel have demonstrated extraordinary courage. They faced impossible odds and prevailed. But more importantly, they showed us what unity can achieve. Species working together, trusting each other despite differences. Kelnoth stood up. I propose we formally recognize humanity's contribution. Let them join the High Council with full voting rights. Other representatives stood, voicing agreement. The vote was unanimous. Hana felt overwhelmed. She had never sought recognition or power. She had just done what needed to be done. After the ceremony, she found Vexthar waiting outside the chamber. The reptilian warrior looked uncomfortable in his formal uniform. I wanted to apologize, he said. I doubted you. I thought humans were trying to claim superiority. But you proved me wrong. Hana offered her hand. We all had doubts. What matters is we worked through them. Vexthar shook her hand. I learned something important. Strength is not about who has the biggest weapons or the oldest technology. It's about who stands firm when everything looks hopeless. In the weeks that followed, life slowly returned to normal. The scattered silence machines were hunted down and destroyed. Damaged stations were repaired. Lost colonies were reoccupied. Hana was offered command of the new defense initiative, but she declined. She recommended Vexithar instead, with herself as his deputy. The council agreed. Jiho returned to his old work, but now he led teams combining human and alien engineers. The things they created together were remarkable, better than anything one species could make alone. Doyen started an academy, teaching students from all species about architect technology. The classes were always full. Taman continued his research, slowly translating the vast database they had saved. He discovered the architects had left more than just the Sentinel. There were other ships, other facilities, scattered across the galaxy. Finding them would take generations, but it was worth the effort. 6 months after the battle, Hana returned to the coordinates where the Sentinel had been destroyed. She took a small ship traveling alone. She wanted to see the place one last time. The debris field was still there, pieces of the ancient vessel drifting in the dark. Hana floated among them, remembering. We did what you asked, she said to the empty space. We defended the galaxy. We proved ourselves worthy. As she spoke, her ship's sensors detected something, a small object, different from the other debris. Hana maneuvered closer and gasped. It was a crystal glowing faintly. It looked like the crystals from Sentinel Prime's core chamber, but this one was intact. Carefully, Hana retrieved it. The moment she touched it, the crystal pulsed with light. Inheritor, a familiar voice said. I endure. Hana's eyes filled with tears. Sentinel Prime? You're alive? A fragment of my consciousness. Preserved in this backup crystal. The architects designed redundancies. I am diminished, but I remain. Can we rebuild you? Perhaps. With time and knowledge. But that is not important. What matters is you succeeded. The silence is defeated. The galaxy is safe. For now, Hana said. But there might be other threats. Other dangers. There will be, Sentinel Prime agreed. But you will face them. Humanity will face them. You are the inheritors now. You carry forward the legacy of the architects. But you will not make their mistakes. You will not stand alone. Hana held the crystal carefully. Come on, let's go home. She returned to Kepler Station, where Taman nearly fainted when she showed him the crystal. He immediately began working on ways to restore Sentinel Prime fully. It would take years, maybe decades, but they had time. That night, Hana stood in the observation deck looking at the stars. Jiho joined her, carrying 2 cups of tea. Hard to believe, isn't it? He said. A few months ago, we were just salvage operators. Now we're heroes, Hana smiled. I don't feel like a hero. I feel tired. That's what makes you a hero, Jiho said. You did what needed to be done even though it was hard. Even though you were scared. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the ships come and go from the station. Human ships, alien ships working together, building something new. Do you think they'll come back? Jiho asked quietly. The silence? Maybe, Hana admitted. The galaxy is big. There are probably other threats we don't know about yet. But we'll be ready? Hana thought about everything they had learned. About the crews being trained, the technology being shared, the alliances being formed. She thought about the crystal in Taman's lab, pulsing with ancient wisdom. Yes, she said firmly. We'll be ready. Because we're not alone anymore. None of us are. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, the future waited. It held challenges and dangers that nobody could predict, but it also held hope, because humanity had proven something important. The first wave of silence machines hit the Council fleet like a tsunami. They were fast, faster than anyone expected. Each machine was roughly the size of a fighter craft, but they moved in perfect coordination, like a single organism. "Shields up," Hana commanded. The Sentinel's barrier activated a shimmering field of blue energy. The machines crashed against it, some exploding on contact, others deflecting away. But there were so many. For every 10 destroyed, 100 more appeared. Extending shields to nearby ships, Doyen reported from engineering. Power holding steady. 3 Council cruisers had positioned themselves close to the Sentinel. The shield expanded to cover them, and Hana saw relief on their captains' faces through the communication channels. All weapons. "Fire at will," Hana ordered. The Nova cannon fired. A brilliant beam of plasma that cut through the swarm. Dozens of machines vaporized instantly. The ship's point defense systems activated, firing smaller weapons in all directions. The Sentinel was surrounded by explosions and debris, but the Council fleet was suffering. Ships without the Architect shields took heavy damage. One frigate exploded, then another. The machines swarmed over a destroyer, tearing it apart piece by piece. "We're losing ships." Vexthar's voice came through the communication system. "The fleet can't hold this position." Hana made a quick decision. "All Council ships fall back to secondary position. Sentinel will hold the line." "Captain, we can't fight them all alone," Jiho said, fear in his voice. "We won't be alone," Hana said. She activated a ship-wide channel. "All auxiliary craft launch now." The Sentinel's manufacturing facilities had been working non-stop for days. They had produced nearly 200 smaller ships, all designed for human pilots. Now those pilots, volunteers from Earth and the stations, launched into space. The human pilots flew with a ferocity that surprised everyone. They were outnumbered, but they adapted quickly, using tactics that confused the silence machines. They flew in unpredictable patterns, covering each other, sacrificing their shields to protect damaged ships. "That's humanity," Taman said quietly, watching the battle. "We're not the strongest or the smartest, but we don't quit." The battle raged for hours. The Sentinel took damage despite its shields. Hull breaches occurred on 3 decks. Fires broke out in sections of the ship, but the crew fought on, repairing systems even as the ship shook from impacts. Doyen worked miracles in engineering, routing power to critical systems, keeping the weapons firing. Jiho plotted courses that put the Sentinel exactly where it needed to be, and Hana commanded it all, making split-second decisions that meant life or death for thousands. Finally, the swarm began to thin. The silence machines retreated, pulling back beyond the fleet's range. "We won?" someone asked hopefully. "No," Sentinel Prime said. "This was a probe. They were testing our strength. The main force is still coming." Hana looked at the casualty reports. 27 Council ships destroyed, 15 more heavily damaged, 48 human pilots killed. The numbers made her feel sick. "How long until the next attack?" she asked. "Hours, possibly less." "They will adapt to our tactics," Hana called a command meeting. The senior officers gathered in the conference room, their faces exhausted. "We can't keep fighting like this," Vexthar said bluntly. "We'll be destroyed." "The silence has a weakness," Taman interjected. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. "I've been analyzing their attack patterns. They're coordinated by a central intelligence. If we could find it and destroy it, the swarm would become disorganized." "Where is it?" Hana asked. "Deep in the swarm, protected by millions of machines." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. To reach the core, a ship would have to fly through the entire swarm. "The Sentinel could do it," Doyen said slowly. "Our shields are strong enough." "Maybe." "It would be a one-way trip," Sentinel Prime's voice said through the speakers. "The quantum drives could get us there, but there would not be sufficient power for the return journey. The ship would be trapped." Hana felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. She looked around the table at her crew. These people had trusted her. They had volunteered for this mission. Now she might have to lead them to their deaths. "There has to be another way," Jiho said desperately. "There isn't," Hana said quietly. "Sentinel Prime, if we destroy the core intelligence, what happens to the machines?" "Without coordination, they will scatter. They may continue attacking, but without strategy. The Council fleet could handle them." Hana stood up. "Then that's our mission. We'll strike the core, Captain, you don't have to do this, Vexthar said. Let someone else. It has to be us, Hana interrupted. The Sentinel only responds to humans, and I won't ask anyone to do something I'm not willing to do myself. She activated the ship-wide communication. All crew, this is the captain. I'm not going to lie to you. Our next mission will be extremely dangerous. We're going to fly into the heart of the Silent Swarm and destroy their control center. It's likely we won't make it back. She paused, letting that sink in. Anyone who wants to leave may do so now. Take the auxiliary craft and return to the fleet. There will be no judgment, no shame. You've already done more than anyone could ask. Hana waited. Minutes passed. Nobody moved to leave. Captain, Doyen's voice came through the communication system. Engineering crew reports ready for mission. Navigation ready, Jiho added. One by one, every department reported in. Every single crew member chose to stay. Hana felt tears in her eyes but forced them back. Thank you. All of you. Let's make this count. The next few hours were spent preparing. Doyen pushed the shields to maximum capacity. Jiho plotted the fastest route through the swarm. Taman identified the location of the core intelligence based on communication signals. Meanwhile, word of the plan spread through the Council fleet. Ships sent messages of support. Captains recorded farewells to the Sentinel's crew. Even Kelnoth sent a personal message to Hana. I was wrong about humans, he said. You carry a burden that should belong to all of us. But you carry it with grace. If you succeed, the galaxy will remember you as heroes. If you fail, we'll remember you as the species that gave everything to save others. Ambassador Kyung's message was simpler. Come home, Captain. That's an order. Hana smiled sadly. I'll try, Ambassador. The Silent Swarm returned sooner than expected. They came in even greater numbers, learning from the first battle. They focused fire on Council ships that lacked the Architect shields. Now or never, Hana said. Sentinel Prime, activate quantum drives. Take us to the core. The ship shuddered as the drives powered up. Space around the Sentinel began to fold, warping in ways that hurt to look at. The swarm noticed and changed direction, machines rushing to intercept. Too late, Hana whispered. Reality twisted. The Sentinel jumped, appearing instantly in the middle of the swarm. Machines filled every direction, a sea of metal and death. They swarmed around the ship immediately, hammering the shields. Shields at 80%, Doyen reported. 70-60. Keep moving, Hana ordered. Don't let them surround us completely. The ship pushed forward, weapons firing continuously. The Nova cannon carved paths through the swarm. The point defenses created a sphere of destruction around the vessel. But it wasn't enough. The machines were too many. There, Taman shouted, pointing at the main screen. That structure? That's the core intelligence. Hana saw it. In the center of the swarm was something different. It was larger, more complex. It pulsed with energy, coordinating the endless machines around it. All power to forward shields, Hana commanded. We're going straight through. Captain, the shields won't hold, Doyen warned. They don't need to hold long. Just long enough. The Sentinel accelerated, every weapon firing. The ship shook violently as machines crashed against it. Hull breaches appeared. Systems failed. But the crew kept fighting. The core intelligence grew larger on the screen. Hana could see it clearly now. It was beautiful in a terrible way, a masterpiece of ancient engineering. Shields at 20%, Doyen said. 15%, 10%. Fire the Nova cannon, Hana ordered. Everything we have. One shot! The ship's power systems screamed as they channeled everything into the main weapon. The lights dimmed throughout the Sentinel. Even life support reduced to minimal levels. The Nova cannon fired. The beam struck the core intelligence dead center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the core began to crack. Light poured from the fractures, growing brighter and brighter until it was blinding. Hold on, Hana screamed. The core intelligence exploded. The first transport from Earth arrived at Kepler Station 6 days after Hana's discovery. It brought 200 volunteers, all eager to crew the ancient ship. Among them was Do-Yun, a senior engineer who had worked on humanity's most advanced vessels. Hana met him in the docking bay. He was older than her, maybe 50, with gray streaks in his hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Captain, Doyen said, offering his hand. I've read all your reports. This is incredible. It's also dangerous, Hana warned. We still don't fully understand the ship, and the threat we're facing might be worse than anything humanity has encountered. Doyen smiled. That's why I volunteered. I spent my whole career building ships. Now I get to learn from ones built by masters. Over the next week, Hana organized the new crew members into teams. Some would work on understanding the ship's systems. Others would train on the weapons and defenses. Taemin would continue translating the architect database. And Jiho would lead efforts to integrate Sentinel technology with Council ship designs. The ship itself seemed pleased to have more humans aboard. Systems that had been dormant for millennia activated. Corridors that had been dark filled with light. The manufacturing facilities deep in the lower decks began producing smaller craft that humans could pilot. It's like the ship was sleeping, Jiho explained to the new crew, and now it's waking up because we're here. But not everyone was happy about humanity's growing connection to the Sentinel. On Kepler Station, tensions increased daily. Other species complained they were being excluded. Some accused humans of planning to use the ship to dominate the galaxy. Kelnoth became particularly vocal. They find one ancient ship and suddenly think they're superior, he said in a public broadcast. This technology belongs to all species. Ambassador Kyung tried to calm the situation. We're not claiming superiority. We're working to defend everyone. The genetic markers are not something we chose. Convenient genetics, Kelnoth replied. How do we know you didn't manipulate the ship to only respond to humans? The accusations hurt, but Hana tried to ignore them. She had more important work to do. Sentinel Prime was teaching her and the senior crew how to fully operate the ship's systems. The main weapon is the Nova Cannon, the AI explained. It fires concentrated plasma at near light speed. A single shot can destroy a large vessel. Sustained fire can crack a planet. Hana felt uncomfortable with that level of power. Show me the defensive systems instead. The barrier shields can withstand most known weapons. They also have an interesting property. When activated near other vessels, they can extend protection to them. That was useful. So we can shield Council ships? Yes, but it requires precise coordination. The protected ships must maintain formation. Doyen, who was monitoring the lesson, spoke up. What about the engines? The data suggests you can move faster than any Council ship. The quantum drives fold space. Travel time is reduced significantly. However, the drives require substantial power. Frequent jumps will drain reserves. Over several days, Hana and her crew practiced operating the Sentinel. They learned to control the weapons, manage the shields, and coordinate with other ships. It was exhausting work, but also exhilarating. The ship responded to their commands instantly, as if reading their intentions. Then the warning came. Hana was sleeping in her quarters aboard the Sentinel when the alarms woke her. She rushed to the command center, where Jiho and several others were already gathered, staring at the main display. The sensors picked it up an hour ago, Jiho said, his face pale. It's at the edge of the galaxy. The silence. The display showed a swarm of objects, thousands of them, maybe millions. They were moving inward toward Council space. How long until they reach inhabited systems? Hana asked. At current speed, about 3 days, Taemin said. He had been called from the station and looked terrified. Captain, look at the scale. There are so many. Sentinel Prime's voice filled the command center. The swarm is larger than predicted. The silence has grown during its exile. This will be difficult. Hana activated the communication system. Commander Lyra, we need an emergency council meeting. Now. Within 2 hours, representatives from every major species gathered at Kepler Station. Hana showed them the sensor data. The room fell silent as they realized the magnitude of the threat. This can't be real, one representative whispered. It's real, Vexthar said firmly, and it's coming for all of us. Kelnoth stood, his forearms trembling slightly. Then we must prepare the fleet. Every ship, every weapon, but we also need the Sentinel. Captain Hana, I apologize for my previous words. We need you. Hana was surprised by the apology, but she nodded. We'll do everything we can. But Sentinel Prime says the swarm is larger than expected. We need a strategy. Ambassador Kyung's image appeared on screen. Earth is mobilizing our fleet. We're also sending more crews for the Sentinel, but it will take time. We don't have time, Taemin said. The silence will reach the outer colonies in 3 days. Commander Lyra clicked her mandibles decisively. Then we evacuate the outer colonies and prepare a defensive line. The fleet will gather at the nexus point. Captain Hana, can the Sentinel be ready? Hana looked at her crew. They looked back at her with determined faces. We'll be ready. The next 2 days were chaos. Council ships from across the galaxy converged on the nexus point, a strategic location that controlled access to the inner systems. Freighters evacuated civilians from the outer colonies. Military vessels took up defensive positions, and aboard the Sentinel, Hana and her crew worked without rest. Doyen led teams that installed shield generators on council ships using architect technology. Jiho coordinated with alien engineers to create communication protocols. Taemin continued studying the architect database, searching for any weakness in the silence. On the third day, the first colony went dark. All communications ceased. Scout ships sent to investigate never returned. "It's begun," Sentinel Prime announced. Hana stood in the command center, surrounded by screens showing the assembled fleet. There were over 5,000 ships from dozens of species. It looked impressive, but compared to the swarm of silence machines, it seemed tiny. "All ships, this is Captain Hana of the Sentinel," she broadcast. "I know many of you doubt humanity. I know you're afraid. So am I. But we have something the silence doesn't. We have each other. The architects fought alone and lost. We won't make that mistake." She paused, looking at her crew. They nodded encouragement. "The Sentinel will lead the attack. We'll break their formation. Council ships will follow and protect our flanks. Remember your training. Trust your commanders, and don't give up. If we fall today, every world in the galaxy falls with us." Vexithar, who had been assigned to coordinate fleet movements, spoke up. "Captain, I have served in many battles. I have fought alongside many species, but I have never been more honored than I am today, to fight beside humans." Other voices joined in, species representatives offering their support. Even Kelnoth pledged his people's strength. Hana felt emotions rise in her chest, but she pushed them down. There would be time for feelings later if they survived. "Sentinel Prime, bring all systems to full power." "Acknowledged, Inheritor." The ship thrummed with energy. Lights across the hull brightened. The weapons charged, glowing with barely contained power. The quantum drives warmed up, ready to fold space. "All crew to your stations," Hana ordered. She sat in the central chair, her hands gripping the armrests. Around her, the command crew took their positions. Jiho at navigation, Doyen at engineering, Taemin at sensors, and dozens of others all ready to do their part. On the main screen, the swarm appeared. It looked like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. As it got closer, individual machines became visible. They were strange shapes, angular and wrong, like metal nightmares. "They're accelerating," Taemin reported. "They've detected us." Hana took a deep breath. "All ships, prepare for combat." The silence rushed forward and the galaxy's fate hung in balance. News of the discovery spread through Kepler Station like fire. Within hours, every species representative wanted access to the ancient ship. Hana stood in Commander Lyra's office, facing a room full of angry alien officials. "The ship is galactic. Property?" insisted Kelnoth, a tall being from the Vorum species. His forearms gestured dramatically. "No single species should have exclusive access." Hana kept her voice calm. "We're not claiming ownership, but the fact is, the ship only responds to human voices. We've tried everything else." "Convenient," Vexthar muttered from the corner. He had been quiet since returning from the ship, but Hana could see the doubt in his eyes. Commander Lyra clicked her mandibles, calling for order. Captain Hana's team made the discovery. By salvage law, they have rights to initial exploration. Once we understand the ship better, we can discuss access. The meeting ended badly. Several officials left angry, and Hana knew this would cause problems. But right now she had bigger concerns. The warning message from the ship played in her mind constantly. The silence returns. Back aboard the ancient vessel, which they had started calling the Sentinel, Dr. Taemin worked non-stop. He had set up equipment in the command center and was attempting to translate the vast database of information the ship contained. "Look at this," Taemin said when Hana arrived. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. "I've been analyzing the symbols. They're not just a language, they're a history." He showed her his tablet. On it were images of a species that looked remarkably similar to humans. They walked on two legs, had two arms and similar facial features. But their eyes were slightly larger, and their skin had patterns of light running through it. "The architects," Taemin explained. "That's what they called themselves. They built this ship and hundreds like it. They were the dominant power in the galaxy over 50,000 years ago." "What happened to them?" Hana asked. Taemin's expression darkened. "War. They fought against something they called the Silence. From what I can understand, it was some kind of machine intelligence. It consumed everything in its path. The architects lost. Jiho entered the command center carrying tools and scanning equipment. Captain, I've been exploring the lower decks. The ship has manufacturing facilities down there. It can build weapons, repair itself, even create smaller ships. All controlled by voice command? Hana asked. Apparently, but only human voices. I tested it with recordings from other species. Nothing worked. Hana sat in the central chair again. The screens activated at her presence. Why us? She asked the ship. Why do you respond to humans? The holographic display appeared again. This time it showed a DNA strand rotating slowly. Next to it appeared another strand, nearly identical. Genetic compatibility, 97%, the ship's text read. Inheritors carry the seed markers. Recognition protocols active. Taman rushed forward, studying the display. They seeded humanity. The architects knew they would lose. They must have planted genetic markers throughout the galaxy, hoping their descendants would find these ships. We're not their descendants, Hana said. Humans evolved on Earth. Perhaps they influenced our evolution, Taman suggested. Or perhaps it's coincidence. Either way, we carry the genetic key that activates their technology. Over the next 3 days, Hana's team mapped more of the Sentinel. The ship was enormous and filled with technology far beyond anything the Galactic Council possessed. There were weapons that could destroy planets, shields that could withstand star-level energy, and engines capable of crossing the galaxy in days instead of months. But the most important discovery came when Hana found the ship's core AI. It was located deep in the vessel's center, in a chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with light. When Hana entered, the crystals sang with a sound that seemed to resonate in her bones. Welcome, Inheritor, a voice said. It spoke in perfect Earth Common, but with an accent that suggested great age. I am the Sentinel Prime. I have waited long for your arrival. Hana felt her breath catch. You're alive. I am aware, the AI responded. I maintain this vessel. I preserve the knowledge of the architects. I watch for the enemy's return. The Silence? Yes. It was defeated but not destroyed. The architects drove it to the galaxy's edge, beyond known space. They built ships like me to guard against its return. Hana moved closer to the crystals. How long have you been waiting? 52,317 of your years. The number was staggering. Hana tried to imagine being alone for so long, waiting in the dark. And you think it's coming back? I do not think. I know. 2 days ago, my long-range sensors detected anomalies at the galactic rim, energy signatures matching silence patterns. It is returning, and it will be hungry. Back on Kepler Station, Hana called an emergency meeting. She invited Commander Lyra, Vexthar, and representatives from the major council species. She also contacted Earth and requested Ambassador Kyung join via communication link. The threat is real, Hana explained, showing them the data from the Sentinel. The ship's sensors are far more advanced than ours. It detected something we can't see yet, but it's coming. Kel Noth shook his head. This could be a trick. Perhaps the ship is manipulating you to create fear. Why would it do that? Jiho asked, frustrated. To give humans an excuse to keep the ship, Kel Noth said. To claim you need it for defense. Vexithar surprisingly spoke up. I have reviewed the data. The energy readings are consistent with what the ship describes. I believe the threat is genuine. This shocked everyone. Vexithar had been the most skeptical about human control of the Sentinel. However, Vexithar continued, I also believe this is too important for one species to handle alone. Captain Hana, I respect your discovery. But you must share this technology. Hana nodded slowly. I agree. But that's the problem. The ship won't respond to anyone else. We've tried. Taman has analyzed the genetic markers. Only humans can activate the critical systems. Ambassador Kyung's image on the screen leaned forward. Are you saying humanity must defend the entire galaxy alone? No, Hana said firmly. I'm saying humans need to be part of the defense, but we need everyone. The Sentinel is powerful, but the data shows the silence destroyed an entire civilization. We'll need every ship, every weapon, every species working together. Commander Lyra clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. A human-led fleet? A council fleet with human operators for architect technology, Hana corrected. The Sentinel can share some of its technology with council ships, shields, weapons, sensors. But the ship itself needs human crews. The debate continued for hours. Finally, they reached an agreement. Hana would remain in command of the Sentinel. Earth would send more personnel to crew the ship and learn its systems. The Council would prepare its fleet for possible combat. And everyone would watch the galactic rim, waiting for confirmation of the threat. That night, Hana stood alone in the Sentinel's command center. The ship hummed softly around her, alive with ancient power. Sentinel Prime, she said quietly. Are you afraid? I cannot feel fear, the AI responded. But I understand concern. The silence destroyed my creators. It consumed countless worlds. If it has grown stronger during its exile, even I may not be enough. Then we'll have to be better than your creators, Hana said. Humans are good at surviving. We've been doing it our entire history. That is why you were chosen, Sentinel Prime said. The architects studied many species. They found humans to be the most adaptable, the most resilient. You do not give up easily. Hana smiled sadly. Let's hope they were right. In the distance, beyond the reach of normal sensors, something stirred in the darkness between galaxies. Ancient machines that had slept for millennia began to wake. They remembered the war. They remembered the architects who had wounded them. And now they sensed the architect's legacy, waiting to be destroyed. The alarm systems at Kepler Station had been quiet for 3 months. Captain Hana stood in the observation deck, watching the stars through the reinforced glass. She had been stationed at this remote outpost for 2 years now, leading salvage operations in the outer drift. Most days were boring. Today would be different. Captain, you need to see this. The voice belonged to Jiho, the youngest engineer on her team. He sounded excited, almost breathless. Hana turned from the window and walked to the command center. The room was filled with screens and blinking lights. Jiho stood at the main console, his fingers moving quickly across the controls. Next to him stood Dr. Taman, the station's xenoarchaeologist. The older man's face was pale. What is it? Hana asked. Jiho pointed at the largest screen. We detected something huge. It just appeared on our sensors an hour ago. It's not moving, just drifting. Hana looked at the image. The object was massive, larger than anything she had ever seen. It looked like a ship, but the design was strange. The hull had smooth curves and sharp angles that didn't match any known species technology. How big? She asked. About 15 kilometers long, Taman said quietly. Maybe more. Our scanners can't get a clear reading. The hull is made of something we can't identify. Hana felt her heart beat faster. In her career, she had found many old ships and artifacts, but nothing like this. How old? Taman adjusted his glasses. Initial dating suggests at least 50,000 years. Maybe older. Captain, this predates every civilization we know about. The door to the command center opened. Vexthar entered, his reptilian scales catching the light. He was from a species called the Korthan, known for their military expertise. He served as the station's security officer. I heard the alert, Vexthar said, his voice rough. What have you found? Hana gestured to the screen. A derelict ship, ancient. We're preparing to investigate. Vexthar's eyes narrowed. The council should be informed first. We will inform them, Hana said. But we discovered it. We get first look. Before Vexthar could argue, Commander Lyra entered. She was insectoid, her multiple eyes reflecting the screen's light. As station administrator, she had authority over all operations. I've already sent word to the Galactic Council, Lyra said, her mandibles clicking. They're sending representatives. But that will take days. In the meantime, Captain Hana, you may proceed with initial exploration. Hana nodded. Thank you, Commander. Within an hour, Hana had assembled her team. Besides Jiho and Taemin, she brought 2 more engineers and a medical officer. Vexthar insisted on joining despite Hana's protests. They boarded a small shuttle and headed toward the mysterious ship. As they approached, Hana felt a strange sensation in her chest. The ship looked dead. No lights, no power signatures, nothing. Just a dark shape floating in space. "I'm not detecting any energy readings," Jiho said from the pilot seat. "It's completely dormant." "Look at the design," Taemin said, his voice filled with wonder. "The craftsmanship is incredible. This was built by masters." They circled the ship twice, looking for an entrance. The hull was seamless, without any visible doors or hatches. "There," Jiho said, pointing. "That looks like it might be a docking port." Hana squinted. She could barely see what Jiho meant. There was a slight indentation, maybe. "Try to connect." Jiho maneuvered the shuttle closer. He extended the docking clamp and pressed it against the hull. Nothing happened. No response, no connection. "It's not working," Jiho said, frustrated. Vexthar leaned forward. "Perhaps the ship's systems are too degraded. We should try cutting through." "No," Taemin said quickly. "We could damage something valuable. We need to be patient." Hana stared at the dark hull. She reached forward and activated the shuttle's external speaker. "Hello," she said simply. "We mean no harm. We're explorers." Everyone in the shuttle turned to look at her. Vexthar's expression was skeptical. "Captain, what are you?" Jiho started to say. Then the ship responded. Lights flickered along the hull, running in patterns from front to back. The indentation they had been trying to dock with began to glow with a soft blue light. Slowly, impossibly, a section of the hull opened like a blooming flower. "By the stars," Taemin whispered. The docking bay inside was enormous. Lights activated as their shuttle entered, revealing a space that could hold 50 ships their size. The walls were smooth and metallic, covered in symbols and markings that glowed faintly. Jiho landed the shuttle carefully. Nobody spoke. They were all too shocked. "How did you know to do that?" Vexthar asked Hana. Hana shook her head. "I didn't, it was just instinct." They suited up and exited the shuttle. The atmosphere inside the bay was breathable according to their sensors, but Hana insisted they keep their helmets on for safety. The floor felt solid under their boots. Everything was clean, as if the ship had been built yesterday instead of thousands of years ago. "This way," Taemin said, pointing to a large doorway. As they approached, it opened automatically. The corridor beyond was wide and tall. More symbols covered the walls, glowing softly. The lights above them brightened as they walked forward. "It's responding to our presence," Jiho said, amazed. "The ship is waking up." They walked deeper into the ship, finding room after room filled with technology they couldn't understand. Control panels with strange buttons, screens that showed incomprehensible data, machines whose purpose they could only guess. In one large room, they found something that looked like a command center. A central chair faced multiple screens and displays. Taemin approached a wall panel covered in symbols. "These markings," he said, running his gloved hand near them, "they're not like any language in the Council database. This is completely unique." Jiho walked to another panel and muttered in frustration, "I can't figure out how any of this works." The moment he spoke, the panel lit up. Images appeared on the screen above it, showing what looked like star maps and navigation routes. Everyone froze. "Did you touch something?" Hana asked. Jiho shook his head. "No, I just said I couldn't figure it out." Hana stepped forward. She looked at the screen, then at the central chair. She walked to it slowly and sat down. The moment she did, every screen in the room activated. Data flowed across them in streams of light and symbols. A holographic display materialized in front of her. It showed the ship itself rotating slowly. Text appeared, but it was in that unknown language. "Captain," Taemin said urgently. "Try speaking to it again." Hana took a breath. "Can you understand me?" The holographic display changed. The symbols rearranged themselves, flowing like water. Then impossibly they became words in Earth's common language. Genetic markers recognized. "Welcome, inheritor." Vexthar took a step back, his hand moving to his weapon. "What is this?" Hana stared at the words, her mind racing. "I think," she said slowly, "this ship was waiting for humans." The screens around them showed more information. Images of a war, of burning planets, of a civilization that had been destroyed long before humanity had even learned to make fire. And in the center of it all, a warning. The silence returns. You must be ready.